the record of its achievements so far. The African Union had already endorsed the incumbent AfDB president as sole candidate for the continent. The African Development Bank is a multilateral institution owned by African countries, but the United States is a major investor. Giving a background to what is happening in the bank, Dr. Adesina explained that all the 16 allegations raised against him were trumped up and without facts, evidence, and documents as required by the rules and regulations of the financial institution. He said calls for fresh investigations by the United States after the Ethics Committee of the bank cleared him of all the allegations and upheld by the governors of the bank were against the rules. Dr. Adesina said having been exonerated, any other investigation would amount to bending the rules of the bank to arrive at a predetermined conclusion. The motive, he said, is to soil his name and that of the bank. The AfDB president described as a thing of pride being a Nigerian and thanked President Muhammadu Buhari for robustly supporting him all along. He used the opportunity to commiserate with the president on the death of the former Chief of Staff Abba Kyari, describing Professor Ibrahim Gambari, the new Chief of Staff, as a man of integrity and of global standing. From the State House, Adamu Sambo, NTA News.
The Senate has approved the external loan of $5.5 billion requested by the executive, with a conviction that borrowing is one of the components of national budgeting in the face of huge fiscal deficit, especially when the impact of the loans are maximized if strictly spent on projects earmarked for it. National Assembly correspondent Ignatius Onkwo has more on this report.
5 days after the transmission of the request for the approval of external loan of $5.5 billion to the Senate by President Muhammadu Buhari, the request has been approved.
That the terms and conditions of the loans from each lender as are contained in the duly executed loan agreement be forwarded to the National Assembly for proper documentation.
There will be deficit in the 2020 budget, and there will be necessity to take borrowing to be able to bridge the gap.
The Senate also approved the revised 2020 to 2022 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. The report of its Committee on Finance reviewed the benchmark for price of crude oil per barrel from $25 submitted by the executive to $28. Crude oil production per day was reduced from 1.9 million to 1.8 million barrels per day, while the exchange rate of 360 naira to a dollar was sustained as submitted by the executive.
360 to $1 as proposed by the MTEF amendment be sustained with continuous effort by the Central Bank of Nigeria to stabilize the exchange rate.
360 to a dollar certainly is a devaluation of our naira.
Passing the PIB bill will also be able to give us more money.
Keeping money in the natural resource development account, I think, is a waste and is really not helping. It means we are not doing much with what we get in that account.
Senate has confirmed that 7 nominees as chairman and members of the Federal Character Commission, with Dr. Mohiba Farida Dankaka as chairman, while James Jiya Kolo is to replace late Daniel James Kolo from Kwara State. It also confirmed the appointment of Dr. Frederick Ekwem and Dr. Jonah Madugu as commissioners for the Federal Civil Service Commission. Senate condemned the killing of Tina Ezekwe in Lagos by stray bullet and Owa Omozuwa, a first-year university student who was also raped and brutalized by unknown persons inside a church in Benin City, Edo State. Senators called for the immediate arrest of the culprits and provision of stiffer penalties for offenders.
A 3-year-old baby was raped by a 44-year-old man. Apart from stiffer penalties, I think we really need to come up with a stronger advocacy against rape.
And I believe that we need to make the penalties for rape stiffer.
Senate has adjourned plenary to Tuesday, 9th of June 2020. From the National Assembly, Ignatius Onkwo, NTA News.
And in the meantime, the House of Representatives has approved the federal government's revised 2020 to 2022 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper with
some amendments. National Assembly correspondent Lami Ali has more.
The revised MTEF, which highlighted government strategy for budget planning and implementation, was readjusted by House Finance Committee before approval. The daily oil production output approved is 1.8 million barrels as against the proposed 1.9 million barrels, while the crude oil benchmark was put at $28 per barrel, $3 more than the $25 submitted. Another key approval is that the excess crude account in operation should be scrapped.
The excess crude account has no backing of the law.
The House also approved the 2016 to 2018 external borrowing plan of $22.798 billion, which the Senate approved last year but was stepped down by House members following observations that projects captured were not evenly distributed across geopolitical zones, as Northeast and Southeast were not accommodated.
We met as leadership with the Minister of Finance for this bill yesterday, and I told her this is the clause we're putting into this report. Do we have your commitment that the Port Harcourt-Maiduguri Road must be a part of, or we will not consider any report, any borrowing plan if that is not included? And we got her word.
Subsequent loan will also be committed to the rehabilitation of the Port Harcourt-Maiduguri Rail Line.
Use your good office to make sure that the commitment we got from Ministry of Finance yesterday is carried to the letter.
The recommendations of the House Committee on Army following its investigation of the insurgents' attack on travelers in Auno, Borno State was approved.
We recommended that 100,000 more soldiers should be recruited just like it did during the Civil War.
Tuesday's plenary featured consideration and approval of 3 bills, including the bill repealing the Nigerian Film Corporation.
This bill is seeking the existing Nigerian Film Corporation to turn to commission.
Motions adopted include the need for federal government to support the second-term ambition of Akinwumi Adesina as president of Africa Development Bank from Minority Leader Ndudi Lumelu, and the motion from Representative Chike Okafo, which drew attention to non-compliance of right-of-way and on-siting of oil and gas stations within residential areas in view of the dangers.
Urge the Board of African Development Bank to halt all further investigation of the President, Aki Adesina, and let the rule of law prosper.
There are over 400 filling stations located within and around residential buildings in Nigeria, and pollution from petrol stations could contaminate buildings as far as 100 meters.
Sitting has been adjourned to Thursday, June 4th. From the National Assembly, Lami Ali, NTA News.
And the Information and Culture Minister, Lai Mohammed, has inaugurated a 7-man task team on audience analysis that will help position the broadcast industry on a sound revenue-generating platform. Anthony Forson tells you more about this.
Inaugurating the task team, which has Bello Kankarofi as chairman and Joseph Mutta as secretary, Lai Mohammed said their inauguration heralds a new dawn in the broadcast industry. With the digital switch over from analog television underway, awaiting an accelerated agenda to make it a veritable tool to uplift the creative industry out of the crippling effect of COVID-19, audience measurement, which has remained the missing link in the entire ecosystem, is desirable in making the digital switchover sustainable for digital distributors, channel owners, TV content producers, and advertisers.
Without audience measurement, we will not see the growth in our television and the value creation in the creative industry that the economy and people of Nigeria so much desire. We need an objective and scientific audience measurement system that articulates the value of the content to consumers as well as the value of the audience to advertisers.
The minister noted that the absence of world-class measurement regime has resulted in underinvestment in the sector, which is necessary to foster growth due to advertisers' reliance on audience measurement to assist in advert placements.
The existing model will never enable Nigeria's creative industry to reach its full potential. It stunts the quality of the content that can be created and also limits the capacity of television platforms to invest in dynamic contents that consumers will be attracted to.
The minister decried the lack of proportional value of broadcast adverts despite Nigeria's population when compared to South Africa. He said in 2016, Nigeria's advert revenue stood at $309 million compared to South Africa, which was $1,301 million. Lai Mohammed maintained that there is an urgent need to have a robust return on investment and an overall effect of guaranteed greater spending by advertisers. Similarly, the federal government, he said, is subsidizing signal distribution because channels cannot pay for carriage by their signal distributors who have invested in equipment and transmission. The committee's terms of reference include identifying best practice audience measurement system, recommend a framework for supporting the sustainability of the system, recommend a payment and disbursement framework among key stakeholders in the industry, that is, BORN, Media Independent Practitioners Association of Nigeria, and ADVAN. Chairman of the task team, Bello Kankarofi, expressed gratitude for the honor, assuring that even though the task is Herculean, members of the team will strive to justify the confidence reposed in them. In Abuja, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
And you're watching the news at 10 on the News 24, reaching you live on the network service of NTA. Still to come.
Presidential task force on COVID-19 hacks on personal hygiene protocols and physical distancing as NCDC confirms 241 new cases of COVID-19. Stay with us.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Welcome back. The People's Democratic Party, PDP's caucus in the Senate says it will continue to support the federal government's fight against COVID-19 pandemic in Nigeria. Minority Leader of the Senate, Eyinaya Abaribe, made this known while briefing Senate correspondent on the outcome of the caucus meeting.
We also agreed that we will continue to support the federal government in its fight against the global pandemic, COVID-19, and urge Nigerians to do their best to stay safe. And we will together be able to overcome this problem.
Party is ready for the forthcoming elections in Edo and Ogun State.
NCDC has announced 241 new cases of COVID-19 as at 2nd of June 2020. These new reported cases bring the number of confirmed cases to 10,819 in the country. Of the 241 new cases, Lagos recorded more than 142 cases. Oyo has 15, the FCT has 13, Kano 12, Edo 11, Delta 10, while Kaduna and Rivers State have 9 new cases each. There are 8 new cases in Borno State, 4 in Jigawa, and 3 each in Gombe and Plateau States, while Osun and Bauchi have 1 case each. Lagos remains on top of the Nigerian COVID-19 chart with 5,377 cases, trailed by Kano with 970 cases, and the FCT with 687 confirmed cases. A total of 3,239 COVID-19 patients have recovered and discharged, with 314 deaths recorded so far.
As part of guidelines to regulate the reopening of places of worship in the country amidst the coronavirus pandemic, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 says worshippers must observe personal hygiene protocols and physical distancing, which must be enforced by religious leaders and respective state governments. More on this with Mitaire Ikbe.
Use of face masks is mandatory. We strongly discourage all close contacts, including shaking hands, hugging, kissing, handing out of materials, and sharing of worship implements, including prayer mats, musical organs, microphones, etc. The capacity of the facility should be limited to allow for physical distancing of at least 2 meters between persons. Places of worship should plan, if possible, for separate entry and exit points. Churches to open from 5 a.m. and close by 8 p.m. For churches, each service should be for a maximum of an hour, with an interval of 30 minutes in between services to allow time for disinfection. Mosques may open 15 minutes before Adhan and close 10 minutes after prayer for Fajr, Zuhur, and Asr. For Friday prayers, mosques are to open 20 minutes before prayers and close 20 minutes after prayers. The total time for Friday prayers, including sermons, should not exceed an hour.
The PTF says these guidelines for the reopening of places of worship are basic regulations for state governments to enforce and not relax.
They are the ones that will be doing the enforcement, and we expect them to limit capacity.
It is important to bear in mind that this phase, more than lockdown itself, is in the hands of the people more than in the hands of government.
The chairman of the task force said a photograph trending on social media of children wearing used personal protective garments calls for proper disposal of PPEs.
Although it is not certain if the photograph was taken in Nigeria, but significantly, that photograph represents a dangerous development. It underscores the need for more risk communication, community engagement, and diligence in the disposal of used PPEs on the part of our frontline workers and the administrators.
Nigerians are urged to empathize with those affected by the coronavirus pandemic and refrain from criticizing the growing figures.
We've had 812 healthcare workers infected. They're not just numbers. 29 of these work for the Nigeria Center for Disease Control. There are people I know that have families, wives, children. About 8 of them right now are in the Do Treatment Center. So how does this represent fraud? So we need to really understand what these numbers mean.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs appeals to Nigerians abroad awaiting evacuation to be patient.
With this new mechanism that will no longer require hotel quarantining, is that hopefully we'll also be able to now speed up the process of repatriation.
The task force gave indication that resumption of domestic flights by 21st of this month may compel a review of the interstate travel ban. In Abuja, Mitaire Ikbe, NTA News.
We'll now take you to Benue State, where the third discharged COVID-19 patient has urged residents to voluntarily go for testing to know their status and nip the coronavirus in the bud if they test positive.
She stated this while interacting with correspondent Sandra Dowisi Akeme at the Federal Medical Center, Makurdi.
case who had been in the isolation and treatment center for some days undergoing stages of treatments leading to her discharge after testing negative. The survivor narrated her experience and said she is overwhelmed by the care and support given to her during the period.
I want to tell everybody, stay safe. Now I am pleading with everybody, stay away from me. Because I am clean.
The medical director of the Federal Medical Center, Dr. Peteru Inundu, and the State Commissioner for Health and Human Services, Dr. Sunday Ongbabo, expressed fulfillment in the progress achieved so far in the handling of confirmed cases.
To us and the people of Benue State, it's a thing of joy. So far, we have admitted 4 patients and about 10 or so for, isolation.
The one thing that is particular, the 2 patients we've had, these were people who completely subjected themselves to treatment. So there was no crisis of somebody trying to deny. And we thank God that we're having that success.
In Makudi, Sandra Doisi Akeme, NTA News.
And there is no doubt that COVID-19 has impacted on the aviation industry as revenue nosedived in the sector since the lockdown.
Aviation correspondent Emmanuel Ayimiru examines the overall effect of the pandemic on domestic flights and what lies ahead.
Nigeria joined the rest of the world to shut down her airports in March 2020 as part of efforts to contain the spread of coronavirus, a pandemic which has taken a toll on lives, travels, and tours, leading to financial crisis in the sector. For instance, the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria, FAN, says that chains of activities like the Bureau de Change, car hire, duty-free, and other businesses that thrive on passengers' activities around the airport have ceased.
Aircraft are on ground, airport operators are on ground, handlers are on ground, fuelers are on ground. Almost every stakeholder in the aviation industry has been grounded. Our revenue has dropped by 95%. And when you consider that we shoulder a lot of our own responsibilities, especially salaries and pensions, and then we have a huge amount of overhead costs, then technically it's like we are saying this is threatening our very existence.
Already, pay cuts and staff retrenchment had commenced since April by some airlines as the effect of COVID-19 bites on, with some going as high as 80% in staff salary reduction across board, while others stated that 90% of staff should proceed on leave without pay from May 1st, 2020 until further notice.
As planes sit on the ground, they run beers. The only time they rake in money is when they are in the skies. For instance, if this maintenance work that I have said to you that must be done some fortnightly, if they were judiciously and diligently done, then the workforce that were busy doing them would have been paid, wouldn't they?
June 24th is the expected resumption date of local flights in Nigeria, but coping with the COVID-19 protocols for airlines is another hurdle ahead. Emmanuel Ayimiru, NTA News.
Now, ahead of the reopening of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, airline operators will be given a checklist of conditions that must be met before flight operations can resume. Michael Olaleye reports on this, plus the repatriation of British and Indian citizens from Nigeria.
Deserted aerodrome, no aircrafts to taxi the runway. In spite of this atmosphere at the Murtala Mohammed International Airport in Lagos, there is still an opportunity for these 233 Indians and 304 British nationals who had been held back by the COVID-19 lockdown to feel the joy of reuniting with their loved ones. Grimham is an engineer stranded in Nigeria, and not in his widest imagination would he have thought that a journey of 2 weeks could turn to months.
But other than that, yeah, I've been here since February.
They should have had one more. I think there's still a few people to come.
Proposed reopening of the nation's airports visible, there has been concern about travelers' apathy towards air transportation. Peter Eni, who is a businessman, shares a contrary view as he believes air transportation has become indispensable.
There are farms you need car. Our kind of farm is by plane. I regard UK as a place where I do my own farming.
Meanwhile, one of the regulators in the industry is working with airline operators to coordinate a safety restart plan.
They will need to notify us of their readiness to start operation, and they will not just go and pick a plane and be flying. We already give them a checklist of what we have to see. The materials, the equipment, the safety guard, the medical facility, everything that they have acquired in readiness to operate without having to allow any infection or spread of infection.
Regulators are also considering reducing passengers' capacity on an aircraft as one of the ways of ensuring that safety is not compromised. In Lagos, Michael Olale, NTA.
This is the news at 10, reaching you live from Abuja on News 24. Still ahead.
Federal government directs immediate investigation into the murder of Vera Uwaila Omozua in Edo State. Please stay with us.
This is NTA News 24 broadcasting from Abuja. You can watch us anywhere, anytime on the following platforms. For more information, log on to our website www.nta.ng or join us on our social media handles, Twitter at NTA News 24, Facebook at NTA News 24.
For comments, suggestions and inquiries, send an email to news24@nta.gov.ng or call us on the following numbers.
NTA News 24,
news and more news. Many thanks for staying tuned. Now, about 10,000 farmers across 13 states of the country are to benefit from the federal government's initiative of free seeds to ensure food sufficiency in this year's farming season and to cushion the effect of COVID-19.
And that's right. The Minister of Agriculture, Sabon Nanono, who flagged off the exercise, says the gesture is aimed at ensuring that food production is not in any way disrupted by the coronavirus pandemic. Lawal Salau Inua has more on this.
The idea of free seed distribution to farmers was conceived out of the need to tackle challenges posed by the coronavirus pandemic as it has continued to take its toll on all sectors of the economy. The impact will invariably affect farming activities in this year's rainy season, hence the need to support farmers with the input to achieve bumper harvest. The Minister of Agriculture, Muhammad Sabananono, while inspecting the seeds, appreciates the effort of the development partners for the laudable gesture.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture will soon also start distributing seeds to farmers across the country, and also there is a massive program for small-scale farmers, probably hoping to cover at least 2 million farmers between now and November and December this year.
We are going to give each farmer seed to plant 1 hectare of sorghum or millet, and then half an hectare of rice and a quarter of hectare of cowpea. So, but each farmer will get only 1 crop.
He assured smallholder farmers of government support to ensure successful farming season, adding that his ministry is poised to create 10 million jobs between now and the next 12 months. In Kano, Lawal Sallo Inua, NTA News.
And in the meantime, 10,000 households have benefited from the distribution of palliatives in Kalabalge local government area of Borno State, one of the remote border areas that has suffered significant insurgency attacks.
Governor Babagana Umar Zulum supervised the exercise where the returning communities in Ran headquarters of the council area received support courtesy of the federal, state government and Dangote Foundation. Mohamed Goni reports.
Kalabalge is said to be one of the disadvantageous areas in the country, considering its location and terrain. As soon as the rainy season sets in, the area is completely cut off from other parts of the state. The situation was further compounded by the insurgency, leading to displacement of communities. Though Ran headquarters of the council have been resettled, scores could still be found taking refuge in Cameroon. It was to each of these male and female resettled residents that 2 10 kg bags of rice, 1 bag of sorghum, 1 carton of spaghetti, and cooking oil were presented.
Appreciation to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces, President Buhari, for all that he has been doing towards repositioning the northeastern sub-region.
According to the governor, the gesture will go a long way in catering for the families there as rainy season sets in. Residents of Ran taking refuge in Cameroon have also benefited from the gesture. The beneficiaries appreciated the gesture and prayed for a return of peace to the state and the country as a whole. The governor had, in appreciation of the military performance in the remote area and the difficult terrain, announced donation of food and cash support to the officers and troops on the front line. From Ran headquarters of Kalabalge, Mahmoud Goni, NTA News.
And still on the issue of palliatives, the Nigerian Navy has donated food and other essentials to 500 vulnerable households in Kachia local government area of Kaduna State.
This is to cushion the effect of the lockdown imposed on the state to curb the spread of coronavirus pandemic. Suleiman Abdullahi Rugachuku reports.
The lockdown order came with attendant effect of food shortage and other essential needs of the people, especially the less privileged in the society.
We appreciate the Nigerian Navy for the gesture and for securing our lives.
The palliatives will help me to feed my family. I thank them for it.
The donation of food items to Ungwang Ayuba, a neighboring community to the Nigerian Navy School of Armament Technology, Kachia, the authorities say is to ameliorate the effects and promote civil-military relations in dealing with criminality in the area.
This action demonstrates the empathy, selfless service of the Nigerian Navy to host community and cordial civil-military relationship for peaceful and mutual beneficial coexistence.
The gesture is part of activities marking the 64th anniversary of the Nigerian Navy's active engagement in national defense and security. In Kaduna, I am Suleiman Abdullahi Regachkung, NTA News.
Now to crime matters. The federal government has directed the police to unwrap the circumstances surrounding the gang rape and murder of a female student of the University of Benin, Vera Uwaila Omozua, in Benin, and the serial sexual abuse of a minor in Jigawa State by 14 men, with a view to bringing the perpetrators to justice. In a statement issued by the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, bringing the perpetrators of the heinous crime to justice, the federal government will be serving a strong notice of its total aversion to gender-based violence in whatever form. The minister described the gang rape and murder of Ms. Omozua in Edo State as a cruel and barbaric act that offends human sensibility, in addition to being unethical to decency, saying no society will tolerate such depravity. He also said the serial sexual abuse of a minor by 14 men in Jigawa State is not only repulsive, but highly condemnable.
And the Inspector General of Police, Mohammed Adamu, has ordered the immediate transfer of the ongoing investigation into the sexual assault and murder of Ms. Vera Uwaila Omozua in Benin, Edo State, from the State Police Headquarters, Benin, to the Force Headquarters in Abuja. In a release by the Force PRO, the DIG in charge of the Force Criminal Investigation Department, DIG Anthony Obezi Michael, will henceforth provide direct supervision and ensure speedy and thorough investigation of the case. Similarly, the IGP has ordered the immediate deployment of specialized investigators and additional investigation assets to all the gender desk offices and the juvenile welfare centers across the country. This is to strengthen and enhance the capacity of the units to respond to increasing challenges of sexual assaults and domestic gender-based violence linked with the outbreak of the COVID-19 and other social ills within the country.
And still on police matters, the State Community Policing Advisory Committee for the Federal Capital Territory has been inaugurated. FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello advised members to be fair and transparent in the discharge of their responsibilities.
Shaibu Onoze Yakubu reports that the committee was constituted by the Inspector General of Police Mohammed Adamu to enhance community policing in the territory.
Policing is a problem-solving approach to policing that requires communities to actively participate and partner with the police to identify and resolve crimes and other forms of social disorder that are peculiar to them and their communities. Inaugurating the 17-member committee, FCT Minister Mohammed Musa Bello urged them not to be partisan in the discharge of their assignment, which is geared at protecting lives and property of the citizenry.
I call upon members of this committee to take this assignment very seriously because our security depends on you, and we expect that you will give it the utmost attention that it deserves.
Representative of the Inspector General of Police and other stakeholders say the concept of community policing is globally recognized and accepted because of its contribution to the reduction of crime in communities.
The issue of community policing came up to reintroduce, to re-energize everyone.
Chairman of the newly inaugurated FCT State Community Policing Advisory Committee, Commissioner of Police FCT Bala Chiroma, promised to deliver on the mandate given to them. Members of the committee comprises heads of various security organizations as well as political, religious, traditional and community leaders. Shaibu Onoze Yakubu, NTA News.
Meanwhile, the Federal Capital Territory Administration has issued a 7-day ultimatum to owners of mechanic workshops, automobile dealers and other occupants who illegally carry out various trades along the Apu Road corridor known as the Outer Southern Expressway to vacate the areas.
The chairman of the newly constituted FCT Ministerial Task Force on City Sanitation, Ikaro Atta, says this is in line with the FCT's minister's resolve for an aggressive city sanitation. Abdullahi Ajia has more.
Institution for effective implementation of the task force mandate, among which is to immediately restore the area's master plan. A meeting of all stakeholders was convened by the Abuja Environmental Protection Board for sensitization. The chairman of the task team, Iharuata, told business owners affected to use the grace of the 7-day ultimatum, which gives consideration for the avoidance of causing colossal damage to their property, to vacate.
The whole essence of this meeting is to collaborate with you so that there will be no destructions to your property. One thing that stands out in what you all have said is your desire to see Abuja grow. All the items that are there, if not removed, the ramps will be seized, the partakers will be packed with payloaders, and many of them will be damaged. The cars will be towed, the block industry, the blocks there will be removed, and that will not be good for your business.
The team disclosed that the first phase of the sanitation exercise, built to commence on Monday 8th June, will reclaim all spots from Apu roundabout to the popular Apu Nepa junction, while the second phase of the sanitation will begin from the Nepa junction to the popular Apu Mechanic village.
Please, that more time will be given because of my own particular business.
What we are appealing is time to give us, to add more time to us.
The task team said the exercise will also allow for the seamless completion of all ongoing projects along the axis as they are top on the FCT minister's agenda. Abdullahi Ajia, NTA News.
Thank you, Abdullahi. Now, the Director General, National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, Julie Okadonli, says the statement of the Lebanese ambassador Hussam Diab on the media over deportation of 56 Nigerians does not represent the true situation of happenings and raises the concern on the release of deboarded 10 Nigerians still in criminal facilities in Lebanon.
Abubakar Usman Akwanga reports that the Director General of NATIP was speaking during a media briefing in Abuja.
65 Nigerians were earlier boarded for deportation by Lebanese government, but only 56 made it home after years of violent abuses on their rights under the guise of domestic servitude. The agency says follow-up arrangements are on course to secure the release of the other 10 victims who were deported and others who are held hostage.
The ambassador gave the impression that none of the returnees was a victim of human trafficking, but that they were in Lebanon with their full consent and legitimate contracts.
The Director General appreciates the cooperation of Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Ministry in exploring diplomatic tools in regaining freedom of the victims. The Director General discloses some high-profile cases of serious sexual abuse, hard labor and massive exploitation of Nigerians by Lebanese and pledged to sustain effort for their release.
It's only those we know of we're talking about now. So they may take it a step further by investigating all the houses there to know those that are still held in slavery, because I heard so many of them are still there.
She explained that a bilateral labor agreement has been drafted for countries to Palermo Protocol signatories and waiting ministerial endorsement. In Abuja, Abubakar Usman Akwanga, NTA News.
This news at 10 on NTA News 24 is reaching you live from Abuja. And just before we go, here's a recap of some of our major stories.
President Buhari reassures Akinwumi additional on second-term presidency at African Development Bank.
Senate approves $5.5 billion presidential loan request.
And CDC confirms 241 new cases of COVID-19, bringing total number to 10,819 confirmed cases.
Federal government directs immediate investigation into gender-based violence. Please stay with us.
This is NTA News 24.
It's good to have you back with us. Now, interventions in agriculture, road, rail and steel infrastructure, as well as health and technological support are areas the Buhari administration gave priority to in the last 5 years to ensure the development of the nationals socially, politically, and economically. Now, considered in hindsight, one Ongie Fine-Face reports that the success trajectory explains the outcome of Nigeria's bilateral relations with other world economies with potentials for sustainable development in the future.
Nigeria's bilateral relations with countries such as China, Germany, the United States of America, United Kingdom, South Africa, Morocco, and Russia provided partnerships for development programs and projects in the country. And since he assumed office, the president has been embarking on diplomatic shuttles to developed nations to explore areas of bilateral ties for the development of Nigeria. President Buhari's visit to China in April 2016 unlocked billions of dollars in infrastructure funding, primarily for road and rail projects, while a 15 billion currency swap deal was accomplished to facilitate trade between the two countries. With Germany, the president secured support for a 6-year program to modernize Nigeria's electricity grid under the Presidential Power Initiative. Relations with Germany also birthed a memorandum of understanding between Nigeria incentive-based risk-sharing system for agricultural land in NESAL and Petkus Technologies of Germany, aimed at significantly reducing the incidence and impact of post-harvest losses in Nigeria's agricultural value chain.
The implementation of this agreement will strengthen Nigeria's energy system. It will have a huge ripple effect on the country's economy as a whole.
Within the last 5 years, Nigeria also achieved a renewed cooperation in security and anti-corruption, with the U.S. government approving sale of 12 Super Tucano aircrafts to Nigeria, as well as repatriation of recovered looted monies and assets stashed in the U.S. This collaboration brought about joint hosting of the 2018 African Land Forces Summit by Nigeria and the United States.
I worked that out so that now you can buy the helicopters that you want. They weren't allowed to buy the helicopters in our country for various reasons, which frankly were not good reasons. But now They get them, and they get them very quickly, and they are the best helicopters anywhere in the world.
In 2018, the federal government commenced implementation of automatic exchange of tax information protocol with the United Kingdom, which provides the Nigerian government with data on bank accounts, property and trusts held in the UK by Nigerian nationals. The protocol supports the voluntary assets and income declaration scheme by allowing Nigerian tax authorities to check the accuracy of declarations received regarding overseas assets and income. Relations with the United Kingdom also led to the launch of a £13 million education program to train teachers, provide school equipment and security for schools for 100,000 children living in parts of the northeast affected by Boko Haram. In 2019, the South Africa-Nigeria Binational Commission was elevated from vice presidential to presidential level as a symbol of renewed commitment to cooperation between Africa's two largest economies.
Our countries must continue to participate in promoting peace and security agenda for the continent.
Through partnership with the government of Morocco, the Presidential Fertilizer Initiative secured supply of phosphates as well as technical assistance to revitalize 14 blending plants across Nigeria, while a basic chemicals platform specifically to develop significant ammonia production plants in the Niger Delta was agreed upon by the two countries. With Russia, the Nigerian government brokered an arms deal involving supply of 12 attack helicopters to Nigeria. The resuscitation deal for the Ajaokuta steel rolling mill agreed by Presidents Buhari and Putin during the Russia-African Summit in 2019 had Russia agreeing to support the completion and full operation of the plant. Nigeria's anti-corruption fight received a boost with the ratification of an extradition treaty with the United Arab Emirates that allows for the extradition of Nigerians who flee to the UAE after committing crimes in the country. In the last 5 years, relations with Saudi Arabia improved greatly. President Buhari at the Future Investment Initiative in 2019 held talks with King Salman bin Abdulaziz of Saudi Arabia and his son, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, resulting in the agreement by the two governments to set up a joint Saudi-Nigeria Strategic Council for Economic Growth and Development, investments in oil and non-oil sectors, and security cooperation. Though much has been achieved in the last 5 years by President Buhari-led administration and in just 1 year into his second term, observers believe that the consolidation of these bilateral achievements and full implementation of agreements signed between Nigeria and its allies in the remaining 3 years will further improve the image of the country in the Committee of Nations, put it on a sound footing for development and remove it from the League of Developing Nations. In Abuja, Onengiye Fineface, NTA News.
Manchester United to pay £10.5 million to keep Odion Ighalo until January, and 5 Barcelona players test positive for coronavirus. Sport Desk has details of these and more.
Manchester United will reportedly pay £10.5 million to Chinese Premier League Shanghai Shenhua after extending Odion Ighalo's loan deal. Ighalo will remain with the Red Devils until January 21st, following a new agreement between both clubs. The former Watford striker initial loan deal expired at the end of last month, but will now be able to see out the remainder of the season and the first half of next campaign. Shanghai will receive a £6 million loan fee, while United pay £130,000 of Ighalo's £300,000 a week salary. And in Spain, 5 Barcelona players reportedly tested positive for coronavirus. The 5 players were not named, but it is understood they tested positive for the disease back when the coronavirus crisis first started. 2 members of the staff are also believed to have tested positive for coronavirus, but the Catalan Giants felt it was the responsibility of La Liga to make that information public. Barcelona are concerned that the 5 players who suffered from coronavirus will be more prone to injury. However, they are all believed to be back in training. La Liga restarts with the derby on June 11th before the Catalans take on Real Mallorca 2 days later. They have a 2-point lead over Real Madrid in second, despite losing to them shortly before the lockdown. And in other news, the 2020 Formula One season will start in Austria on 5th July, the first of a run of 8 races in Europe. An F1 statement said the championship will begin across 3 consecutive weekends, 2 in Austria on 5th and 12th July, and a 3rd in Hungary. There will then be a 2-week break before 2 consecutive races in Britain and events in Spain, Belgium and Italy. All will be run behind closed doors, with participants following guidelines to minimize the spread of COVID-19.
And this is where we wrap up the news at 10 on NTA News 24. We thank you for sharing part of your morning with us. I am Muslima Sholebo.
And I'm Comfort Amadu. Thanks for your time. Do join us again on top of the hour for news updates.
The talking drum is an hourglass-shaped and two-faced, with a drum on each end. It is also known as waist drum. The drum is made from animal hide and has leather cords which run along its body attached to the animal hide on either ends. Talking drums vary in sizes, from the smallest called gongong to the largest known as iyailu and dundun. The talking drum is held under the arm and squeezed as the drummer hits the surface with a bent stick. The act of squeezing the cords changes the pitch and gives various notes and messages. The higher the drum is squeezed, the higher the notes produced, giving the drum a type of rhythm that can be used to communicate. The origin of the talking drum can be traced to the ancient Old Oyo Empire, from where its popularity has spread to other parts of southwest Nigeria. With the advent of the transatlantic slave trade, the talking drum was subconsciously exported to other parts of the world. Today, in parts of Brazil, Germany, France, and so on, the talking drum has become part of their musical instruments. The talking drum is called by different names across Nigeria, some of which include gongong, dundun, or iyailu among the Yorubas, kalagun among the Hausas, and igba among the Igbos. The pitch of the talking drum can be regulated based on how the player strikes the surface of the drum and squeezes the connecting strings to change its lyrics and rhythm. The talking drum mimics the way human beings talk, hence the name talking drum. The talking drum is believed to communicate with the spiritual world, as it does also with the living. The talking drum produces prayers and blessings for every new day in countless villages and palaces. It is the oldest instrument used in communicating messages in most parts of Yoruba land till date.
For now, the best and most